Good evening. I hereby call this June 18, 2026 meeting of the Planning Commission to order. The first item on our agenda this evening is approval of the May 21st, 2026 minutes. Any comments, changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we recommend approval of the May 18th minutes as presented.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the May 18, 2026 meetings as presented. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Ms. Wiegand?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Mr. Guyer?
Aye.
Mr. Paulson?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Maggie, the motion carries? Yeah, okay. All right, the next item on our agenda is new business, item A, a public hearing and consideration of a request by William McAllister to rezone 1110 Churchville Avenue, parcel identification number 4865 from B1 Local Business District to R3 Medium Density Residential District. Tim Hartless, Planning Manager for the city, will give the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you said, this is a request by William McAllister to rezone 1110 Churchill Avenue from B1 Local Business District to R3 Medium Density Residential in order to reestablish the use of the property as a single-family home. This property was platted in 1917 as part of the Staunton Park addition, and then it was annexed into the city in 1948. There is one structure located on the property. It appears that that structure was originally used as a single-family home. City real estate records do not indicate a construction date for that dwelling, but we believe it was probably in the late 1940s. At some point, the structure was converted to a business use. We couldn't find any hard detail on that, but we believe it might have been in the late 1990s when it became Warner Insurance Company. Mr. McAllister purchased the property earlier this year, and he wishes to reestablish the use as a single-family home. Business zoning does not allow for residential use on the ground floor, so that necessitated a request to rezone the property to R3 medium density residential. Staff has considered the request. We did not identify any issues. If the rezoning is approved, a building permit will be required for a change of building code use group from B to R. Surrounding zoning is R3 medium density to the west and the south, B1 local business to the east, R2 low density residential across Churchville Avenue, which is to the north. We did look at this property in 2016 when we conducted a mass rezoning of Churchville Avenue. We looked at it again last year when we did the south side in the historic district rezoning. We picked up a couple of extra properties that we thought we had missed in some of the previous rezonings. Both of those times, this property was removed because it was used for business purposes. But now that it's been sold, the new owner wishes to use it as single family. Staff believes that it is appropriate at this time for us to go ahead and rezone it. The comprehensive plan designates the area as commercial. While that doesn't necessarily support this particular rezoning, the comprehensive plan does also support the rezoning of these existing non-conforming single-family homes back to residential. And in our draft comprehensive plan, this area is shown as mixed use, and this rezoning would be consistent with that designation. So staff is recommending that Planning Commission recommend approval of this rezoning request.
Any questions for staff? All right, if not, I will first give the applicant the opportunity to come to the podium, answer any questions or make any statements you would like, and then I will open the public hearing. Mr. McAllister?
Right here.
Right there. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for us,
Okay.
please.
William McAllister. I currently live at 33 Fallon Street here in Staunton. Is that all you need?
And if you don't have any comments, is there any
Oh,
questions?
no. I'm gonna kind of he pretty much hit it pretty good. It started out as a residence. I've been up to the assessor's office. They think it was built around 55 or 56. They think. I've already checked into all that. And so it was a residence. The Lockridge family owned all three of those houses right on that block because they had a little store there on the corner called Lockridge's Market. Some of y'all may or may not have heard of this market, but it was a little general store. And so they owned all three of those houses there, including the one I have. And basically, they lived in those houses, the Lockridge family. And so they were residents up until 1997. That's when Jack Warner bought it. I know Jack very well. He had an insurance company in there, and then he passed, unfortunately, in 17. His sons took it over, and then they retired about a year ago and decided to put it on the market. And they had area insurance over there, really good people. And I'd been in that office numerous times, so I knew about it. But really, I'm just trying to get it back to residential at this point in time. I've retired. I was actually in the insurance business for years, and I've actually retired. So I wish I had it 20 years ago. It'd been a great location for my insurance business, but it is what it is. But anyway, so I'm just pretty much put the request in, just like Tim said, to change this from business to residential, so I can use it as a residence or rental property or whatever. So anyway, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Does anyone
Basically.
have any questions for Mr. McCallum?
Yeah. And one question I did have, Tim, and you might double check it, but the house, 1102 is where the store was, Lockridge's Market. And some of y'all do remember that. It's Lynn's Florist now, and then they rent the upstairs right there on the corner. And then it's my house. Then there's the residence next door, but 1114, for some reason, that's zone B1. And it's been a residence for, I checked on it. It's been a residence for years. And it's zone B1. The house on the other side, 1118, is a residence. So it's kind of weird that one in between, unless I read it wrong on the assessor's statement.
I think there may be an error on the assessor's page because both of those houses to the west of you
Yeah.
are zoned residential.
Okay. So I just saw B1 on there. I thought that was kind of interesting. So I didn't know if it's somebody that got grandfathered in or whatever.
Sure.
But anyway, so yeah, that's it, basically.
Thank you very much. All right. Any discussion before I open the public hearing? The public hearing is open. We have no one else here with us. Is there anyone on Zoom? All right. Having no one, we'll close the public hearing and the matter rests with the commission.
Madam Chair, I just have one thought, and it's partially because my absence on Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
Is the Warner Insurance sign still there?
No.
So it's been removed already. Perfect.
That wasn't easy.
I imagine, yeah.
I saw them out there. I mean, they were the two guys that were real estate.
Okay.
Sometime get down. I had to take it out of base and it had all connected to the electric.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it came out. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, good.
I just didn't want to have a residence with a sign. That was my only, yeah.
I understand. All right. If there's no other comments, then I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, on the basis that it would serve the interests of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of a rezoning of 1110 Churchville Avenue from B1 Local Business District to R3 Medium Density Residential District.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we recommend this rezoning of 1110 Churchville Avenue. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Ms. Wiegand,
Aye.
Mr. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Kyer,
Aye.
Mr. Tomaso,
Aye.
carries.
Aye. Thank you very much. And then this matter will appear on council's agenda here in these chambers on Thursday, July 23rd at 7 p.m. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
You.
You're welcome.
The next item on our agenda is consideration of an amendment to section 18.140.040, parenthetical D, parenthetical 4, parenthetical D, parenthetical Roman numeral 2, downtown business area defined of chapter 18.140 signs, billboards, and other advertising structures of Title 18 zoning of the Stanton City Code. Tim Hartless will give the staff report on this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So chapter 18140, signs, billboards, other advertising structures of the zoning code defines an area known as the downtown business area, DBA, which has specific sign requirements for that downtown area. That area includes part of North Central Avenue and North Lewis Street. Oliver Dahl, who owns several properties in that area around Central and Lewis, has requested a zoning text amendment to change the boundaries of the DBA to remove these areas. The DBA was intended to coincide with our historic districts. The current boundaries of the area include North Coulter, North Lewis, but those areas are not part of our historic districts. And this creates some issues when we're reviewing sign permits, because the area is part of the DBA. We have to enforce those historic district sign regulations rather than our entrance corridor regulations, which would be more appropriate for that area. Additionally, staff has identified an area west of Lewis Street on West Beverly, which is in a historic district, but it's not part of the DBA. So when we review sign permits for businesses in that area, we should be applying those historic sign regulations, but there's a lot of uncertainty there, and we're not always able to do that. So staff is recommending that rather than try and define a specific boundary for these special sign regulations, that we just amend the code and say that any property used for business, professional, or industrial uses and located within a historic district are subject to these special sign regulations. And we may need to remove that term DBA and change it to something else, something like special sign regulations for properties in the historic district. We can do that and have that ready for you should you decide that you want to move forward with a public hearing next month. But we provided you with this information this month. We'd like to have some discussion about it. And if you're in agreement, we'll try to schedule this for a public hearing at a future meeting. I hope that's next month, but I'm hesitant to commit to that yet.
That was my one thought, that it would be more appropriate to have a different name. But other than that, I think this is personally a good move.
Is there a reference to the boundary in the historic guidelines, or is it just in the zoning ordinance?
I don't recall there being a reference to these boundaries in the guidelines.
So if there's no boundary, you're subject to if you fall in a historic district.
Correct. And I think that was really the intent of this in the beginning, back in '96 when they adopted it. I think it was just an oversight when they created the boundaries. They didn't extend them far enough out to encompass all of the historic districts.
So if I am very much in favor of simplifying the way these districts are described. So, and I don't know if we're going as far this time as I even think we want to, of can we clarify what's defined as downtown, what's defined as historic in one spot, and then just constantly refer to it that way. And if something needs to be changed, it gets changed in one place and not 2 and 3 or 4 or 5 different places. I don't know if we're trying to go that far right now, if this is step one to getting us there. But I guess in this specific case, if we're suggesting that the downtown business area be defined as the same thing as a historic district, why call it the downtown business area at all and not just say in the historic district.
Yeah, I think that's
We just
what,
said.
what,
We're
what
headed.
what we want to do here.
Okay.
We'll just,
That's just not what's written here. That's the only
And
reason I was.
I did not
Okay.
include that
Fair enough.
in this draft, but I will fix that for the
Okay.
public hearing next month. But the intent is we'll just strike the whole term downtown business area and we'll call it special sign regulations for signs in the historic districts.
I did not follow that before. I'm sorry.
We discussed this at the field trip on Tuesday, Mr. Hanson.
I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
I found myself quite confused because we're talking about the DBA and then we're talking about historic district and then we're talking about corridor ordinance. And first question is, does the historic district area, that's going to be governed, overlap with the corridor ordinance area?
No, they do not overlap.
Okay.
The entrance corridor ends where the historic district begins.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is it possible that when we come in to talk about this or have a public hearing, that we could have a map that shows the different areas?
Yeah, I can do
So
that.
something that's sort of.
We can get a
includes all of
map.
them on the same page?
Yeah, we can get a map together that shows the corridor, shows the historic district, and maybe highlights in red the areas that I referred to earlier.
Okay.
Coulter, Lewis, and this area west of
West
of
Beverly.
almost Beverly Street.
And, yeah, there was something else in there too. Go ahead if anybody else has questions and it'll come back to me in a minute.
And assuming all businesses that are currently there will be grandfathered in?
They would be if there were any businesses that were impacted by this, they would be existing, so they would be grandfathered. I really don't see that happening. I see it making it easier for businesses to at least know what their sign regulations are. It certainly will make it easier for staff when we're reviewing permit applications for signs. And I believe but the way we've worded this, where any property used for business, industrial, professional purposes, it doesn't say zoned, it says used. So even if it has a residential zoning or an industrial zoning or something that would make it non-conforming, they can still get a sign for that business that they're trying to open there.
What is the area of West Beverly that's not currently in the DBA?
There's some business zone properties, like the former WTO or the WTO and radio station,
Yeah.
some commercial buildings on that hill coming down towards Lewis Street. Those are primarily the areas I was talking about. It's that Newtown Hill from Jefferson down to Lewis.
And my other question was, I'm forgetting something. Is the downtown actually considered a historic district? Is it one or?
The downtown is part of the Beverly Historic District.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a separate one for the wharf, which you would also consider downtown.
Didn't have a map in front of me and I was confused.
So do we want to see anything else or do we feel like we can authorize staff to put this on for a public hearing when they're ready?
Do you want to throw out some ideas for naming convention? I mean, I would keep it as simple as possible and as descriptive as possible. Historic district sign regulation seems to be pretty direct.
And so long as we get the maps in a packet, the map showing the areas, so I feel a little more comfortable with exactly where we're talking about. I know what you mean on Lewis and Central.
Yeah.
But I just would kind of like to see where the edge of this is. I'm fine with going ahead and scheduling the public hearing.
I trust you, Tim. You'll name it well. Maggie will help you. All right. Go forth and schedule. The next item on our agenda is item number 3C, consideration of an amendment to Title 18 zoning of the Staunton City Code to add Chapter 18.111 accessory dwelling units. Again, Mr. Hartless will give the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And earlier this year, in its 2026 session, the Virginia General Assembly adopted Senate Bill 531, which overrides local zoning authority and requires that all localities allow accessory dwelling units, known as ADUs, in any zoning district that allows for single-family dwellings as a permitted use. The new statute takes effect July 1 of 2027. And as a result of this, our zoning code must be amended to allow ADUs in all of our zoning districts where single-family homes are permitted. And that would be all of our residential districts, R1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as the TNDI district, which is the special zoning district for the villages of Staunton, our TRD1 district, which is the district that was created for Uniontown a few years ago, our professional districts, and also our HE1, our higher education districts. So that's Mary Baldwin and some of the area around Mary Baldwin. In response to this, staff has drafted 4 different amendments. First would be new chapter 18.111, accessory dwelling unit. The second is an amendment to 18.30.030. That is our R3 medium density residential districts where we establish that accessory dwelling units can be permitted by special use permit in certain situations. That needs to be amended because now all single-family homes could have one ADU by right. So we need to address that in those special use permit regulations. Also, the third amendment was to section 18.220. That's our fees section. We established a fee for ADU permits of $250. And then the fourth was an amendment to section 1810.040C definitions, where we would like to add a definition for cooking facility that would really help us in clarifying exactly what qualifies as a dwelling unit. So we provided those amendments in your packet tonight, and we've asked you to review them. We would like to have some discussion, and if you are in agreement, we'll schedule a public hearing for a future meeting. Again, that hopefully will be next month, but I don't want to commit to that.
Do we want to do the easy ones first?
Sure.
Starting with attachment 3 for medium density residential district. It's pretty straightforward. For our newest commissioners, I don't know, when did we adopt this? And it's in here. Since I've been here, we adopted this
Yeah.
to allow for
Yeah.
additional existing dwelling units based on square footage.
I would say it was 6 or 7 years ago.
So, since the first one would be allowed by right, we would skip those and go straight on to 2 and 3 based on square footage.
And so is it envisioned that those 2, for example, might be one inside the house as well as one outside on independent, separate structure? I'm just kind of,
We're talking about these
The
where you could
chart.
get the special use permit.
or does this apply just to houses where they're putting 2 units
yeah.
inside?
These apply just to houses where
Okay.
you have a really big house that we acknowledge requires a substantial amount of money to maintain and to pay utility bills. So this was a way that we came up with to try and help these folks both utilize all of the square footage of their home and also be able to afford to maintain a larger home like this. And the idea is that all of the dwelling units would be in the home, not in accessory structures.
Those would be covered under the other part of the other ordinance. Gotcha.
And the logic of taking out B, parking for 2-family dwellings shall be regulated the same as single-family dwellings. Under the chart,
We did that because typically these would also be in areas where there isn't a lot of off-street parking and everyone parks on the street. So we did not require extra parking for these ADUs. We also didn't anticipate there being that many of them, simply because there won't be a significant number of homes large enough to qualify for these.
Right. So I guess we would also need to, if we take that out, make CB and DC underneath. We'll have to re-letter C and D, right?
Yeah, I think we will need to do that. That'll become B and C, I guess.
I apologize. I'm still a little confused about the square footage, or well, the net dwelling floor area that is I mean, so under 5501, can you have a unit?
2 units. One additional unit.
Scratched. That's why I'm
Right.
confused.
Yeah, under 5501, you get one ADU under the new ADU ordinance, not by special use permit. Because one ADU is now permitted by right
Right.
for everybody.
And you wouldn't even have to maintain this 3,000 square foot.
Right, yeah, so all of that becomes irrelevant. That's why we struck it. So now you could only get a special use permit in cases where you have a house larger than 5501, then you could have 2.
Okay. So
One by right, one under.
below 5,500 is by right. Above that is still going to remain a special use permit.
Exactly.
Okay.
Do you think that leads to any confusion?
Yes.
Yes,
it does.
That we,
I think it will lead to confusion, and there'll be questions that the zoning administrator will have to explain. But I don't know, I don't know any other way to do it.
So we just list 0 to 5,500, one additional?
Wouldn't put it in.
do we
here because
need
it
to
doesn't-
somehow,
I think maybe presenting this as the ones inside versus the ones that are outside might make it. So if somebody wants an ADU outside, this ordinance doesn't, that's separate from the dwelling, but on their property, this isn't going to apply. But if they want to have units in the building, in the past, you could get one if you were above a certain square footage and you applied for a special use permit. So we could see what it was and make sure it was going to work. That has been Xed out. We can't have that requirement anymore according to the new the Senate bill, the state legislation. So now we have to, do we just have to give them the right to put the unit in? If they have inside, they have to follow the building code stuff, but they don't need a special use permit. But if they want to put in 2 units in the building, then they'll have to do that. They'll have to come before us for the second one.
I think this is more so what if they take their by right one outside?
Then they could ask for a special use permit to have another one inside if they were 5501 to 8,000.
But now we're saying 2. But
That would be the second.
like when you cross these out, I think we were thinking that the units would all be inside, and they probably will, because most of these that apply to are on small lots and probably couldn't have one outside. I don't know. I think this probably needs fleshed out a little bit better to articulate.
We could add something to both of these on the right-hand column under units to say,
One unit is
one
what-
unit inside the primary or inside the principal structure. And maybe above the table, we could say, for one ADU, see SCC 18.111.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111. 18.111.
Yeah, maybe, I think adding columns, interior, exterior, and maybe even by right and SUP.
Yeah, like maybe a column that says additional dwelling units by right with with the reference to that section,
Yeah.
one, and then additional dwelling units by special use
Right.
permit.
So
So 5501 to 8 would be 1 and 1, and the 8,000 to 10,500 would be 1 and 2 in these new columns.
right, yeah, to clarify that one of these is the by right one that you're allowed to have.
And then indicated under
Gotcha. Okay.
that,
Right.
make a reference to the new code section. See, I cursed us when I said we'll take the easy ones first. Sorry.
Do we also need to change the R1 and R2 districts to reference the new ADU code and say it's a permitted by right use? Because then it would kind of tag into R3 then, because
Sure.
it'd be permitted.
So we talked about that, but the way the ADU ordinance is written, it is part of the single family use. So since single family is permitted in R1 and R2, ADUs are automatically permitted because they are part of the use of single family dwelling now
Single-family
because of the change to state law.
Yeah. but-
Yeah. Actually, I think we need to keep in mind that we had a list of houses, a number of houses with certain square footage, within certain square footages when we looked at this ordinance the first time. And there are probably, I don't think there were more than 20 houses or something like that throughout the city that were big enough that they would put more than maybe 2 units inside, whether it's by right or by SUP, depending on which ordinance you're looking at.
And 2 of those have since been converted into basically Airbnbs,
Well, maybe, but
Oak Dean and
yeah.
the other inn.
But I'm thinking that there's 2 of them up in my historic district up there, Newtown, 10,000 and 11,000 or 11 and 12. I can't remember which it is. And they're not likely to ever get turned into the doesn't work. It wouldn't really work to try to put an Airbnb in it, but I hear you.
But this, Tim, this also applies to yet to be built properties also, correct?
No.
It does not.
Does not?
It does not.
If you go up to the very
So I missed that part.
top, the A, existing on August 27, I guess that's when we created this, right?
Yes.
August 27, 2015, and continues to contain the same. So it has to be a dwelling that was existing on that date.
Understood.
Attachment 1 there.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry, just if and maybe it doesn't matter, but if you're allowed by special use permit additional dwelling units beyond the 1, would those additional dwelling units, so again, you're thinking of the extra 1 or the extra 2 for greater than 5,501 square feet, would those units be susceptible to the new ADU ordinance, or would they not be because they would have had to been existing prior to 2015? Did that make any sense what I just said? Okay, if the house had to exist before 2015
Right,
and the original intent of this ordinance was to allow for those bigger houses to have 1, 2, or 3 ADUs. Okay. At the time, this ADU ordinance didn't exist, right? Because we're just now creating it.
correct.
But would this new ordinance apply to these houses that existed before 2015 if they wanted additional ADU? Since they wouldn't have before.
Yeah, that's why that's why we're eliminating the first one, because by right, even smaller than 3,000 feet, they're allowed an additional dwelling unit.
Right, but yes, but we're now putting other restrictions on ADUs.
So
Would that matter?
any ADU that's been approved by a special use permit is still subject to the conditions of that permit unless they are contradicted by the new ADU ordinance. That makes sense. They have a special use permit to have an ADU. They're subject to those requirements unless something in the new ordinance says differently. And then in that case, they would be able to revert to the new ordinance and give up their special use permit. But they would be subject to the requirements of the new ordinance, and they would be grandfathered for any existing non-conforming things that may exist.
Okay.
It gets complicated. Trust, I've thought about that too, but
Yeah.
you know, it,
I gotta have an old building with a new ADU that's an old building with an old ADU that's on a special use permit, but now I want another ADU based on the new ADU ordinance.
I hope, fortunately,
I-
we haven't issued very many of these special use permits for ADUs. I'm hoping that
Well, and
situation does not
we can
occur.
think about that when we get back to the main ordinance too.
Okay.
I think the problem gets solved there.
I just don't want to see and I'm talking about a really special situation. I feel like a building that might have an ADU now by special use permit that's going to get another one, and the two ADUs are governed by two different pieces of legislation.
Well, under the
Sounds
new
like a
ordinance,
nightmare.
under the new ordinance, they don't get a second ADU.
Yeah,
Because
they
they're
would-
only allowed one.
They already have their one, even though it's by special use permit. They already have a second. They already have their one freebie.
Does the special use permit get null and void?
Maybe we can talk about it.
It- Because they were issued the special use permit, I can't remember which ones we've done and what the conditions were, but if there are no conflicts between what they were permitted to do under the SUP and the new ordinance, they could just transition to being allowed by right under the new ordinance. If there are conflicts, let's say we allowed them to do something with the special use permit that the new ordinance doesn't allow, they're going to want to retain that special use permit so that they can continue to operate that way. They're not going to want to revert to the new ordinance.
You know what we're gonna ask, right? Can you look up how many of these are and what the?
We can look into that. Yeah, we'll get you a list.
I have a question too. When I first started hearing about ADUs, I thought of them as primarily the ones that people build in the yard, because we do have a lot of people with fairly good sized lots who might want to and might be able to build a small unit independently of the primary one that would be within the, with all the, meet all the setbacks and what have yous and that they need to. And so if they build it outside like that and it's separate, what happens if they also have a big house, which they might, and they might want to decide to put a second dwelling unit in the house itself? I mean, is that something that they're going to be able to do? If they have one outside and then the house is big enough,
Sure.
according to this, to put another one inside?
If they're 5501 to 8,000 square feet, they would be able to request a special use permit to have one more.
Okay,
If they're,
That's why the chart, I think that the change to the chart,
The
I
fact
think
that-
fixes that.
the number totals two different things
Right.
that were, the total number is split over two different things and it's confusing, to say nothing of.
Because we just talk about accessory dwelling unit. We don't in this say that it has to be in
Yeah.
the building.
and maybe we just need to change the heading where it says additional dwelling unit or S in parentheses. Maybe it needs to say additional dwelling units, including the by right unit allowed in 18.111.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
That-
Then when you see the number 2, you know, that includes the one that you're already allowed to have by right. So you really can only have one additional by special use permit.
If you could update that chart and send it out to us before we meet again, just we have time to digest it and.
Oh, I think we're gonna need, I'm gonna wanna see this whole thing again before we do
Yeah, I think
Public
so
hearing.
a
too.
public hearing,
There's
so.
enough pieces floating around. I
Okay.
agree.
Unless everybody feels different, but I think that
No, I
we
don't.
haven't even got to the big dog yet, so.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna need to see this one again.
All right.
All right, any
we
more
ready?
on this one?
But I have a question about the big dog, as you put it. Is this a German Shepherd or is it a Golden Retriever, which are very different animals? Anyway,
I just do want to do the fees real quick and I just knocked those out since we started down this road. Fees, pretty straightforward, right?
mhm.
Any comments?
Yeah.
And then attachment 5, cooking facility. Any comments on how we define that?
It's clear that it's really supposed to be closer to a real kitchen than a hotel room that comes with a microwave.
It's portable and it goes away, then you
Mhm.
basically are living in a shed.
Yes. Or hotel room.
Right.
Sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we started.
No, no,
down-
go ahead.
I
It's
just wanted
fine.
to finish out the end before we go back.
Fine.
So please, you go first, Madam Vice Chair.
So my question is, if somebody has a big lot and they can put a separate unit out there, which is what I think this ordinance is partially focused on, the one that we got from the state legislature. I'm assuming that they're only allowed to do one on the property. Under the terms of this ordinance, the one that's detached from the house, it's a separate facility, and I'm just concerned about how we're gonna, if somebody decided out of the goodness of their heart, they wanted to put 3 or 4 of these little cabins around their property that otherwise met the requirements for cooking facilities and sanitation and so on, because there's so many homeless people and they wanted to see them have a place to live. And I mean, I can see people coming up with all kinds of ideas. And I'm just wondering if we put a limit on the total number you can have on a piece of property.
Maggie, you might be able to answer this more faster than I am, but there's something in here that says you can only have one, right?
Yes.
For that.
Okay, I missed it in spite of all the underlining and the fact that I read it.
Seeing where it explicitly says that, but I believe that is how we interpreted it.
I think like at the beginning,
But line 20 provides complete independent living facilities for one or more individuals might get a little suspect.
Well, it could be a couple living in a place like this or a parent and a child. I mean, I can,
We may have to look at it, but if we can't find it, then we'll do something, add something to make it clear that we're talking about one, but
Okay.
I don't know why I can't find it now, but the whole purpose of this is to allow one additional dwelling unit. And maybe it's in the state statute and we didn't get it transferred over to this.
so I was actually looking at the states, I was talking about the state statute.
Yeah.
Is what I was
I don't-
looking
I
at.
don't see it explicitly in the state. I believe that's the way we interpreted the state ordinance though, just because it refers to the
Unit.
ADU singular.
Yes.
Yep.
But that might be something we want to make clearer in our ordinance.
and in case we are going to follow, since they say in here that if you have your ordinance adopted before the state one actually becomes effective, if we have something we're not sure about, we better get it in there now. If they don't cover it, we can.
Yeah, I believe we had to have adopted an ADU ordinance prior to January 1st of 2026.
In order for that too.
So more of a general concept, bigger picture stuff that has me a little bit troubled about the whole concept. Not that I mean, obviously we have to get there somewhere, but the first thing that I picked up on was that we cannot not allow let me phrase this, the state statute basically says that we cannot impose further setback limitations on an ADU than what's already in our ordinances for residential districts.
For single-family dwellings.
I think the state statute says single family or accessory buildings, and that's where I start struggling because,
Rear,
like,
or-
go ahead.
I was gonna read it, sorry.
Yeah.
Rear or side setbacks for the ADU that are greater than the setback requirements for the primary dwelling or the setback required for the accessory structures on the residential lot, whichever is less.
And I, again, we can't go against the state, but my heartburn is that some of like our R1 district, and I think it's R2, both say that it's a 5-foot setback for accessory buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggle with a 5-foot setback, because okay, if I put mine out there at a 5-foot setback, my neighbor wants to put one at a 5-foot setback. Now we got 2 units 10 feet apart, which now all of a sudden I think doesn't meet fire codes. I don't know how to stop that. I mean, I guess the only way to stop that now is then we increase our accessory building setbacks in those R districts. And I don't know that we really want to do that either.
So 10 foot is the minimum that the fire code allows.
Minimum separation.
Yes, minimum separation. So
Because the
5 foot
building-
is
Five and five.
the
The
smallest
building
setback.
code comes into play too.
The primary building comes into play too. Yeah. That we have this, I don't know. I'm thinking like my subdivision and saying, let's all put an ADU back there and all of us have these small backyards and, but also I can't come up with a good way to stop it either,
Well, I think you're right. I think the only option would be to increase the setback requirement for accessory buildings in a rear yard.
Right. But I don't know that we want to do, I mean, I don't know that we really want to do that either. But we're almost getting forced into doing something unless we want dwelling units 5 foot from a property line.
Garden shed's one thing.
Right.
You want
Right.
that at the back corner of your lot.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the guy the person that wants the little garden shed to house their mower and their tools but I really don't like the thought of, hey, let's put a person back there now,
Building code question.
Miss Robinson.
Sorry. We're all just so excited. I raised my hand. In the building code, are there different distinctions between a dwelling unit and a primary dwelling unit and accessory dwelling unit?
Yeah, the
That was
building
one.
code has it depends on whether it's a part of the main structure or whether it's a
Detached or-
standalone detached
Okay,
structure.
and that's, I was picking that up in the state ordinance
Yeah,
code section. Sorry, I also don't have my notes. With all my scribbles on. Okay, that's how I was reading that. So I think that the building code saves us. I mean, does the building code say that it can't be or would closer than?
for a detached unit, the building code requires fire separation or fire rated walls if the building is less than 5 feet from a property line.
I
But
forgot what that rule was, sorry.
But it doesn't say the building has to be 5 feet. It would allow a building less than 5 feet if the walls were fire rated.
Okay. Something at least.
I have 2 comments. First of all, I found what I think we were looking for in the first page of the Virginia Acts of Assembly here. Localities may require the following, and it's number 8, no ADUs on a residential lot that has more than 1 dwelling unit. So in other words, if it's got a primary unit and another unit on it, you can't put another ADU on it.
And
So
that,
that's where we.
that's how we
it
would
was
get to
somewhere.
that.
Yeah, I just have
But-
to read it backwards.
But to be fair, that does say may require the following. So if we want to
So
do
we
that,
have to
we
write
have
it
to
in the
write it in.
ordinance,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we can put it in our ordinance, where there's a whole bunch of stuff below that you can't put in an ordinance.
Does that mean you could not have an ADU on a property that's a duplex?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think that would be that. I keep thinking of something and then losing it when I open my mouth. Are we gonna
that's
need
different.
special rules for something where if you have a primary unit and instead of putting a separate unit, you want to put a unit as an add-on out to the outside of so you're expanding the footprint of your main dwelling and you put an add-on that's going to be the unit. That's going to be the ADU. I'm just wondering if there's any, because some people, if they have a big enough lot that they could expand their house, but not big enough that they could really put a second unit that meets all the regulations, building codes and the rest of it, they might want to do that. And I'm just trying to think of all the things that we may need to regulate because it's going to be chaos if we let some of these people, do some things.
But if it's attached, it's not an ADU.
It is. You can have attached or detached.
So my esteemed colleague over here just brought up a great point with exactly this. If you have a townhouse situation, those are technically single family houses on single lots. Now also with zero setbacks on those middle units. Can you,
But in townhouses, each unit is on its own lot.
exactly. So could you not put an ADU behind a townhouse?
Yep.
Yeah, you could.
It's not one
You could.
lot.
And,
You can have
and,
an
and at
ADU
the
in a
risk of
townhouse
saying
lot.
something even crazier, off the record if we could, because this is a brilliant idea that I'm going to use. Could you have a row of townhouses that front the road and build an ADU behind it, a row of ADUs behind it, accessed by an alley? And now I got 16 units instead of 8.
Yeah, is this something that developers can take advantage of?
Oh, I think there's going to be all kinds of ways developers can take advantage of this. If they read it closely enough and they read the state statute closely enough, I think they'll find some
I
ways
mean,
to.
it's kind of a ridiculous concept that we're talking about, but I don't see where it wouldn't work. And then let me take that a step even crazier. It says that, and even our ordinance would suggest that it's meant to stay as one lot and not be subdivided. But what would stop me from condominiumizing that? And can our city ordinance even do that?
We don't regulate condominium
Exactly.
agreements.
And so let me be very clear that we have to do something, and I'm not opposed to doing something. I'm very scared of what the state ordinance has forced us into doing.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh man, I'm sorry.
No, it's a good question.
I'm struggling hard with this, and I'm struggling hard with it, and even knowing that our hand is sort of forced. I'm also struggling with how I can, really work this to my advantage.
But it says that 80, but there's nothing that would prevent a landowner when creating a subdivision.
If the restrictive covenants do not allow ADUs, that is still valid.
But sadly, we can't require that under E3.
I don't think we can.
So like back to our matter. But I won't.
Would
I'm afraid-
covenants and restrictions overrule ordinance?
Yeah. It would have to be enforced civilly, but yeah. Unless it's, I mean, you can't say you can't have African American, like that's been declared. But otherwise, yeah, they control. So you can have restrictive covenants that are more restrictive than state and I didn't see anything in here that said that an individual, landowner couldn't, when creating a subdivision, put that in the restrictions. That there would be no accessory dwelling units allowed. I mean, that's not our cup of tea, but my other job putting that in the memory banks. When if we create subdivisions,
Okay,
one way, I mean, addressing it if necessary.
yeah.
Tim, does historic preservation currently have guidelines for ADUs? If you're an historic district and want to build an ADU, do they currently have visual and construction guidelines to build that building?
I don't recall there being anything specific to ADUs. They have guidelines that are designed for building facades.
Yes.
And it would apply to any building facade, that's visible from the public street.
There just might be a matter of scale here, where there's some things that would apply to a full house that would be impractical on a smaller ADU. I think it's just worth maybe seeing where their heads are at on this, because I think the two things should move in concert and not them having to react after the fact. Be a really expensive ADU,
F answers my question.
double hung windows and all that kind of stuff.
Nothing in this section.
I'm confusing this with the manufactured housing one, Tim.
I had a couple of moments like that too.
So yeah, so I thought it was in here and it's in a different place, but it is in F, so. All right, or we want to look at the actual ordinance in particular, or,
The draft.
yeah. I don't know, I felt like I was looking at the Code of Virginia. Are there specific comments on the proposed language, or are we still digesting?
Do we have a definition of homestay in the ordinance somewhere?
I
Okay.
think the homestay ordinance,
Because it's referred to under 18.111030. The first one there says an ADU is not permitted to be used as a homestay. And I just wanted to make sure there was a definition somewhere for homestay.
I'm looking it up here now under the homestay ordinance. We do define homestay in the ordinance, in the homestay chapter.
So I'm looking at lines 18 and 19 now. Would the P1, the TND, the TR, I'm probably getting my letters wrong. Would they, like a residential dwelling lot? Is that specific enough to include those, or
I think
should it be
is.
on a lot that permits residential dwelling by right? I don't know.
Well, if the purpose, it says accessory dwelling units shall be allowed in all zoning districts that allow for a single family dwelling use. And all of those districts that we listed there, single family dwelling is listed as a permitted use. Or it references
But
like an R4 where it references R1 and R2 where single family dwelling is specifically listed.
I don't see any. I'm concerned if just in general, if we start to put these here, start to allow them in the city, is there any way that we're going to be able to factor in the impact if you get a lot of them in a certain area? Maybe there are a lot of big lots, some area, and quite a few people decide to put them in. The impact on water and sewer. I mean, some of our areas have very old water and sewer pipes, and there may not be a lot of extra capacity. And I don't really know how much these would cost, how much of a issue these would put up, but I'm concerned about that aspect. And of course, the people who put together the state legislation didn't say anything about.
Yeah, I don't think they gave us the authority to say no because of the impacts to our water system.
Yeah.
You have the single family home use established,
Mhm.
you're allowed to have the ADU. And I don't think there's any way we can stop it.
Might be something where we would need to sit down and look for areas where you might get more than one or two of these that are served by the same part of the water system and just start looking to make sure that we're ready for it or something.
You're brilliant.
Me?
Ponder this. If I bought a lot today, an old lot, and I wanted to build a house,
Mhm.
I go to the city
Mhm.
and they say, that's fine, sir, you can build your house, but you have to pay us our facility fees,
Mhm.
which are give or take $11,000 for sewer and water.
Okay.
So I'm in the ballpark if I remember right. If I want to add an ADU, it's no different than me building a new house. Why can't we regulate that by charging a facility fee?
If that ADU is going to have its own independent connection to
Aren't
water,
we saying that it needs to? It has to have its own facilities. I'm just pondering that. I mean, I, I am honestly picturing every person out there going, I want this little shed in my backyard. And I'm going to put a cooking facility and a bathroom in it. And I'm going to do this for on the cheap. And all of a sudden, if I've got an $11,000 bill hanging over my head, some people are going to think twice before I'm just going to,
Yeah.
quickly throw something together. And now you got it now. And now the second, the in-home ones don't bother me as much as the exterior buildings.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to make a separate unit in your building, but all of a sudden these little tiny buildings are popping up all over the place. Is that a way that we can kind of, yes, you can have one, but you're still subject to all the single family requirements, which includes paying a facility fee?
So Section D of the state code, localities may require, the following. Number 5, compliance with Little Roman numeral 2, water, sewer, septic, emergency access, flood zone, and stormwater requirements.
So maybe we do have
the ability to charge the facility and the connection fee. I think we could if they were going to have an independent connection.
yeah.
But
And
if they propose to have a connection from the existing house to the new building, there wouldn't be any way for us to charge a facility or connection fee.
Can't require that.
How would you put two independent dwelling units on one water meter?
It happens with two-family dwellings now pretty regularly. As long as it's all on one property, they could have one meter and the city just sends one water bill.
My house had it.
If it's detached, can we require it?
That's what I'm pondering.
That
If
was-
it's detached.
Can you put that on your list to ask our esteemed legal counsel for the city?
Because when they talk about the facility fees, that's if you go out to the water pipe, the main pipe and the sewer in the street, and you get a second connection to each of them for the separate unit. Then you could charge them that fee. But I can really see that somebody might just extend the pipe from the house and
It's going to be tough in a lot of these situations when
Mhm.
your water hookups to the front of your home.
yeah.
Right.
And providing parking.
Yeah,
Right.
the parking's gonna screw up some of those people's.
Well, and I guess I can't help but think that, like, if we're talking a decent sized lot that will support it, then then it's a good thing. But if we just got done making, or we're in the process of making bigger houses on smaller lots anyway. And now we're going to come back and say, and oh, by the way, and you can put a shed back there too with another dwelling unit in it. And I'm trying to figure out how to, how to regulate it at least a little bit so that we're not, you know, getting, we're allowing for it, but not getting too crazy either. And I don't know how to regulate crazy.
With money.
I think we're kind of at the same point at this point of our discussion with this that we were with the earlier ordinance that had the 3,001 square feet. You could put some or more, you could put a unit in there. That there's so many factors going on that might make it more difficult for one property owner to do that than another one. And we ended up with that list of how by house size to see how many people would actually might be able to put 5 different units in their house. And I'm just thinking at this point, we've got so many possibilities for how people might do this and how they might attach it. And I think we do need to see this again.
Yeah, but you can scale it back. Exactly what you were saying, putting fees on everything is
Mhm.
gonna restrict people from doing certain things. Like a $500 connection fee for each dwelling or up to
Right.
$2,000 for each dwelling.
Well, even in a lot of these situations, even the additional infrastructure to make it possible is going to be cost prohibitive.
How do you mean?
Extending a water line, extending a sewer line, hoping you have enough fall for your sewer
Mhm.
for a gravity line. I don't know. I think it's like you said, this is going to make sense in some larger lots, but it's going to
Yeah.
be challenging in smaller.
Mhm.
lots.
Yeah.
Tim, can you read me the definition of homestay?
Let me get back to it.
Sorry.
So homestay means the use of a residential dwelling unit or portion thereof for occupancy for lodging purposes in exchange for charge for occupancy. The duration of any period of occupancy may not exceed 30 days. However, there shall be no limit to the frequency in which rentals or to occupancy may occur. So it's 30 days, but you can do it in as many 30 days increments as you wish.
Kick out the person in my shed.
I'm glad we're talking about this, but is there a burning need to update this now versus seeing how, because all municipalities are going to deal with the same issue. Will there be things to learn from other cities, other counties that we can let them fail first before we fail?
Well, the reason that we were doing it now is because we've had several requests. We've even had one person, that we've been waiting for to submit their amendment proposal. So we thought maybe we just get out in front of it.
And when are we we just have to have this in place by,
We have to have it in place by July 1st of
Next year.
2027.
I'm kind of with Steve on this. I don't know that I want to be a trailblazer.
Say several requests. What's that mean?
We've had at least 3. And then one that's actually gone so far as to say they were going to submit a proposal, but we haven't seen it yet.
So right now they're by special use permit in all our zonings or
Only in R3, R4, P1.
okay.
And they have to be inside the house. When we wrote that ordinance, it was subdividing a house, wasn't it?
This is different, he's talking about.
Okay, sorry.
So in R3, R4, and P1,
Yeah.
you are allowed an accessory dwelling unit. It's different than the statute, right? The one with that we were just looking at, the
Right,
August of
our-
15.
Yeah, our special use permit option is different than the state statute, yeah.
Yes, that's what I meant.
But it's also different than what we were looking at with the chart earlier tonight, what you're talking about, or no? In R3 for,
Yeah, we were looking at that chart.
so
That is our
that's it.
special
So
use
it's
permit option.
only for those buildings. There's,
Mhm.
okay, I misunderstood you on Monday,
I'm even half pondering, and this, again, I think Steve sort of nailed it. Do we want to be on the bleeding edge of this? But would it be weird thinking we've got basically 12 months to have to enact something to enact an ordinance to allow them by special use permit in R1 and R2, see what comes in, and you actually use applications to sort of get some ideas?
It has to be by right. That was what the,
No, for the next 12 months. And
Oh, I
say,
see.
and say, here's the trial program. Come bring us some ideas, and then that'll give us some ideas to work with also.
like that, because then we have like weird, like we already have these some special use,
Okay.
and then we're gonna create,
Mhm.
I mean, in
Well,
my opinion.
I think we would have ADUs sprinkled around town that would have their own special requirements separate
Mhm.
from whatever the end result of this amendment is. Because
So,
they'd all be by special use permit with their own conditions.
and my other concern with being a trailblazer, is that we're not the only locality like deer in the headlights with this, and I don't think that it's impossible that that people start pushing back on this, and at the next General Assembly session, that maybe this gets put off further to give, and I think we should wait and see and make sure it survives that before, I mean, I think we should be working on it and have a
yeah.
work in progress. But with big stuff like this, I mean, there are many unintended consequences that we're talking about and other localities are talking about. And I think at some point there might be some pushback and some changes, and I don't want to enact something in the interim that maybe we didn't have to do. Look,
Sure.
because that's why they put this off, for one reason, is so people can start looking at it and thinking about it. And anyway, that's
So
my,
what I think I'm hearing you and maybe even Steve say is let's keep working on this.
Mhm.
Let's keep refining it. Let's keep it sort of front of top of page, if you will. Keep coming back with ideas, but maybe hold off on putting it on a public hearing agenda.
Yeah.
For a while. Like
like April.
yeah,
May
but
next
like
year.
I don't want to be sitting here in June of next year going, oh crap.
Yeah, no,
You
I think we
know.
should have one ready to go, but I think we
Yeah.
should make it through next year's General Assembly session before we
actually, yeah.
enact this.
Is that or
I'd be interested in what council thinks, clearly, as well. No.
Or, and this could make me very unpopular, let me rephrase it, more unpopular. Is there benefit to having some, not a public hearing for approval of an amendment to the code, but a public hearing to get public input on the general idea? To see, because
Public
first of all,
meeting.
there'll be, public meeting, there'll be a lot of, obviously a lot of input, but we can also gauge. I mean, not that it matters, public input, it's the law, we have to do
Sure.
it, but I think we may be making more informed decisions if we do that.
And then, yeah, and I'm also thinking we might get some information from the housing committee that's been working on things, to see what kind of housing needs they think we have that would be served well by small units like this. I mean, I can think of a bunch, I'm sure everybody can, but you have a small unit in your backyard, who might be there? It might just be somebody renting it like they would an apartment. Might be an elderly parent that somebody needs to watch and make sure they're taking their meds and so on. But, and the
So-
possibilities.
We're gonna have to have a public hearing to approve this. Well,
Yes.
two, one at each, recommend to approve it and then council to approve it. But I think if we're gonna do a sort of pre-public hearing, we should at least have some sort of draft in place and not just be wide open accepting comments.
This just seems like a topic that
If it's,
transparency would be
Yeah.
beneficial.
Mhm.
Yeah, just the messaging is gonna be important that
I think it could
Yeah.
turn into,
your neighbor wants to put a,
I mean, in general, I think we have a draft of something that might not look anything like what we end up with. So it's not like we don't have anything to put out there.
I'm just afraid you're not gonna get anyone paying attention until it's affecting significant members of the community.
Tim, with the one you have now, can you tell us what they're requesting? Just so we have an idea of what's going on now?
Well, I just know they live in an R2 zoning district and they want to put a building in their backyard that would be a dwelling unit for a family member. So it would be one of these deals where it's a shed in the backyard that someone lives in.
Mother-in-law shed.
which they can't do.
Which they can't do now because it's
said-
zoned R2.
Right, okay.
Someone could put a second dwelling unit on a lot in R3 and R4 if the lot was 15,000 square feet. But we don't have very many of those.
That commercial years ago is what caused this, the she shed. Friend of mine has a he shed. I thought we were going to the shed and it was actually wood flooring, TV, fan, the whole nine.
Don't name your friend because it's probably.
I wasn't.
It's probably not, there's probably something not good there.
It's like, this is a zoning violation.
Madam Chair, could I make a couple comments?
Absolutely, please.
We have heard from the public for quite some time now that they are interested in ADUs. We've heard it going through the comp plan updates. That's in the draft as far as something the city should look into. The Housing Commission, it's one of their items that they believe the city should address. We've heard it from the public, individuals. We've heard it from city council members. I would strongly encourage you not to delay action on this in order to get input from other jurisdictions or wait until the next General Assembly. We've talked to our city attorney about that. He does not believe that there's going to be any significant legislation next year that would change this. Of course, you never know. But of course, I want you to be comfortable with the ordinance before you recommend or have a public hearing on it. But I would just highly encourage you to work on it on a monthly basis. And then once you are comfortable with it, proceeding through the public hearing process.
That's fair, but to counterpoint, we also had a lot of public input for bike and pedestrian infrastructure before it went in as well.
Yeah.
And I guess as an overall, I don't have an issue with an ADU. I have an issue with everybody that wants to come in has to get one, and it's not basically it's the Wild West in some ways, because if you want one, you can have one. Like, I sort of like the concept of being able to look at it and go, is your lot actually big enough? Can it support this? And that's where and that's where my frustration, I guess, is with the General Assembly is going, any single family lot out there can support it, which I don't think it can.
But I think some of those answers are here in C when it says inspections. It has to abide by all codes.
And localities may require the following: limits on floor area, lot coverage, and impervious area of an ADU of no less than 350 square feet on lots less than, et cetera, et cetera. That piece gives us some way to help govern what fits where, I think, depending on how we interpret that.
Lot coverage and impervious areas of an ADU.
So that somebody can't take up their entire backyard
Mhm.
within all of
Right.
this and make that a second house.
Coverage.
Um,
And that's why we included that provision that the ADU would be subordinate in size to the principal dwelling unit.
Could it be controlled through because that, all that means is it's got to be less than a 2,000 square foot house.
Right.
But could it be controlled by a percent of the unbuilt lot square footage? If the lot's 5,000 square feet, you got a 2,000 square foot house on it, you can use a percentage of the remaining property to gauge the size. I mean, you want to build it to scale,
Yeah.
right? Sure. Should be a minimum, but you want to also give people the flexibility of building a larger one too.
mhm.
Yeah.
I think we've got enough to think about that we can, if this could come back in a month or 2 or 3.
Well, if not a full public hearing meeting,
no,
can-
no,
can,
just
can we do
come back.
a work session?
Yeah, another one like
Outside of-
this. Yeah.
But I mean, I'd like to have it be public, obviously, but this is something I'd like to maybe talk about for a couple hours one night and really think through.
Call those, we had public meetings when we were doing the rezonings, the mass rezonings, so the people could come in and hear about it and ask questions about their particular piece of property. And I can see a reason maybe for doing, but we don't usually do this for zoning changes like this, a public meeting. You know, it would be on our agenda, so if somebody wants to come in and under matters from the public, talk about it, they can sure do it. But I think Rodney has a good point that we've had a lot of people, a lot of comments about it from a lot of different places, and we're pretty sure that this is a good idea to have one. It's just exactly what's going to go in it. So I'd like to know. I don't really have a good idea of how many of these we might be able to build in the city, and so I'm thinking about that
We're
too, but
calling these, accessory, this is not a small investment.
no.
I mean, I think you're probably looking at a minimum of, 30, 40, 50, $60,000 to build one of these. Just to build something someone's going to want to live in and pay you for it.
Unless it's the mother-in-law.
Take it or leave it.
No, but I mean, by definition, if you had literally a place for a bed, the equivalent of almost not quite a hot plate, but a 2-burner, inset stove, and you could, yeah, you got to have water, but you could even go so far as to do one of them like composting toilets, and now you don't have a sewer connection, and it'd still be there. And again, you're right about if you want to do it the right way, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars of an investment. But if you wanted to build one yourself, that's where my concern comes in.
Does a composting toilet meet the building code?
I
Well,
think it does.
We would require that they connect to public water and sewer if they
Okay.
meet the availability.
Okay.
And I'm gonna assume, unless the single family home is on septic, which is not very common in the city, that they're gonna meet the availability requirements.
I would even make the argument that if those houses that we do have that are on septic systems are larger lots, out there, like I'm not even thinking about those for ADUs, because you're talking about the fringes of the city where I've got enough space to do something, and frankly, now your septic system health department codes are regulating number of bedrooms. So now you're probably talking about either expanding your septic. Yeah, that's I don't even have that in my head as the ones that concern me, to tell you the truth.
Well, I mean, like I said, C says any person proposing an ADU shall first obtain an ADU permit, which brings in all other nuts and bolts for building anything. I mean, your permit fees, your inspections, your building permit fees, and they're all required. So I think that,
So where are you reading that, Kendrick?
C.
Person proposing an ADU.
So it's actually just like building your home. And you have to go through every line item to get it approved.
So what's an ADU permit look like? Like what's required for an ADU permit?
We haven't created it yet, but it's gonna be very similar to a building permit. You're gonna have to give us a floor plan for the ADU. You're gonna have to show us a site sketch where it's located on the lot.
Okay.
Linda will do a check to make sure that you meet all of the requirements of the ordinance before she
Okay.
issues a permit.
So,
Yeah,
so,
And it has to
so,
follow local codes and ordinances.
so we could, and it sounds like that's a route to go too, is making certain through the permitting process that it's not just let's throw up a Byler barn and put a hot plate in it.
Mhm.
You know, I mean,
Yeah, and this ADU permit is in addition to the building permit.
okay,
And we chose 250 because that's the special use permit fee. That's the rezoning fee. That's what people are used to hearing when they ask about a zoning.
what's the building permit fee though?
Building permit fee is 18 cents a square foot with a $75 minimum.
Okay. I'm only thinking because I guess building permits, if you're telling me that it's the same sort of package, do those take more effort and more money to really go through than a special use permit even? Like when you're talking about, getting the building inspectors involved and getting the,
Yeah, it'll in this case for an ADU, it would be just about the same package.
okay,
The having someone draw the plans and possibly needing the surveyor to do a site layout, maybe this is the most expensive part of it. In most cases, you don't need to have those things unless there's a question that requires us to ask for it.
it's a lot to think.
Are there other localities who have these already?
Yeah, there are localities all over the Commonwealth that already allow ADUs.
That you could share with us?
I don't know if Maggie recalls. I know she did most of the research
We
on
looked at
this.
several other ADU ordinances. The reason we didn't include any kind of comparison or anything in this report was because the state legislature has pretty clear guidelines on what you can and can't require, and a lot of the existing ADU ordinances in other localities will probably have to be amended to fit with these new guidelines. So we didn't
Right,
want
I just didn't
base
know if there
them
were
off.
other things in them that weren't addressed in the state ordinance that we might want to include in ours, like in your research, if you saw anything like that.
I can't think of a specific example right now. Some of the other cities that I looked at were like Harrisonburg, Charlottesville. I think Winchester was one of them, trying to look at cities near us. But yeah, those were all obviously before the state legislation, so they probably have things in theirs that we wouldn't be allowed to put in ours, because we didn't have one adopted before January 1st of this year. So, but if there is something you'd be interested in, learning from another locality, we can try to get that or figure out, or, even talk to them to see how their process is going and what they're doing to get in compliance.
Like Charlottesville has one.
Yeah, Charlottesville. I want to say in Charlottesville, you can have them just about anywhere. Yeah.
Have a lot of neighborhoods that have a lot of bigger houses than many of the ones here in Staunton. They're different places.
I'm just curious if there were other, because the state has their set of things, but I didn't know if there were other considerations, things that we might want to include that aren't addressed in the state statute.
I'd kind of like to see another version of this in a month or two as the time allows, that updated and adjusted, and then see what questions we still have. I tend to agree with Rodney that I'd like to see this in place. Just because I think we need it. And because so many people have asked for it as part of that. And I see that these ADUs are going to fill in a part of the structure of the housing stock that we don't have. We don't have a lot of small houses. We don't have, I mean, these are even 500 square foot things, maybe something like that. And we don't have a lot of those. And there are a lot of elderly people, single people, and others who might want something that's like a 1-bedroom apartment, but it's on a nice lot. It's not in a building with a lot of other apartments. And this might really do the trick for people. And then, of course, we've all talked about the mother-in-law and the other reasons why families might want to have one of these on their property. Maybe they'd use it as a guest house for people that come and visit them for some reason. So,
I took a note here to also, and I might do this report back, is you just mentioned Charlottesville, Winchester, Harrisonburg, looking not only at their ordinances, but their permit applications. Like, what do they look like? How are they, how are they regulating that on the administrative side? Might lend some, to me, at least some additional guidance to what the process looks like. Again, not just what the ordinances are saying. Might help us in our discussion.
Thoughts, Mr. Heartless, on, we haven't given you much feedback on the statute itself. I recognize that. So we're like, oh, go and come back to us, but we haven't really given you any direction.
That's okay. I
Um,
know that's the same reaction that I had to it initially. You're trying to wrap your mind around what the state has just done to you. Um,
I would like to see those ordinances. I know I'd like to look at them. Like if you could email them out, the ones you have, I would like to just peek at them.
So are you suggesting that we don't necessarily amend right now, but come back in 30 days when we've had some more time to digest and then
I
give them
think
some
we're
marching
all a little
orders?
over.
Yeah.
I
No,
think
that's what-
I mean, I think what we've talked about on the other ones, which is I knew we were gonna go. I knew this is the road we are gonna go down, which is why I skipped to the other attachments first. If you want to work on those, I think we've given some more clear direction on. But yes,
well, we'll work on those, and Maggie and I will have some discussion, and we'll work on this one too. I'm hoping we'll bring something back to you next month to look at some more.
I would note that I'll present this at the next Housing Commission meeting. I believe that is July 2nd. So they may also have some input by your next meeting,
yeah.
some thoughts on it.
It might be, if any of them want to come join us at our next meeting, would be interesting too. I mean, if we're down with that.
Sadly, I won't be here, but take good notes. All right. Anything else before we move on? All right. The next item on our agenda is old business. I don't see any. Is any
No old
prison,
business.
any other business?
No other business.
How about some updates on actions of city council, item 6?
I'm trying to remember if I have given you an update since the last council meeting.
Oh, because
Because they're only having one a month.
yeah, so there hasn't been one because it's not till
That's correct.
next.
There has been one this next week.
So,
We'll go back to council with the 3 requests from the YMCA that you reviewed last month and the street vacation for Anthony Street.
all right. Anybody on Zoom?
Nope.
So there are no matters from the public. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and our next meeting will be held here on July 16, 2026.
So moved.
Second.